Emma stood outside the tall glass building, watching the rain fall hard on the London streets. Water dripped from her dark hair onto her face, mixing with the tears she was trying not to cry. At 28 years old, she thought she had her life figured out. She had worked day and night to build her marketing career, staying late at the office, missing dinners with friends, and giving everything she had to her job. But today, everything fell apart. The meeting had been short and cold. Her boss, Mr. Peterson, had barely looked at her when he spoke. The company was closing down. He said, "Not her fault." He said, "These things happen," he said. But Emma felt like her whole world was crashing down around her. She walked slowly through the wet streets, her black shoes making soft splashing sounds in the puddles. People rushed past her with their umbrellas, everyone in a hurry to get somewhere important. Emma felt like she was moving in slow motion while the rest of the world raced ahead without her. For 3 long months, she had been looking for a new job. 3 months of sending her resume to companies, 3 months of waiting by her phone for calls that never came, 3 months of interviews that led nowhere. Today had been her last chance. An interview at a small marketing firm that she had really wanted to work for. But even before she walked into their office, Emma knew it would not go well. She could feel the disappointment hanging over her like a dark cloud. She had lost her confidence somewhere along the way. And now she felt like she was just pretending to be the successful person she used to be, standing on the busy corner. Emma felt completely invisible. Hundreds of people walked past her every minute, but none of them saw her. None of them cared that she was struggling, that she was scared, that she did not know what to do next. In a city of millions, she felt more alone than she had ever felt. In her life, the rain was getting heavier, and Emma realized she did not have an umbrella. She raised her hand to call for a taxi, hoping to get home to her small apartment where she could hide under her blankets and cry properly. An old black taxi cab pulled up to the curb, and Emma could see the driver through the rain-streaked window. He was an older man with kind grey hair and gentle eyes that seemed to sparkle even in the grey weather. "Hello, Emma," he said in a warm voice that seemed to wrap round her like a cozy blanket. "Get in, love. You'll catch a cold in this rain." Emma froze. The words hit her like lightning. This stranger, this taxi driver she had never seen before in her entire life, had just called her by name. Not just any name, but her real name, her actual name. She looked round quickly, wondering if maybe he was talking to someone else. But there was no one else named Emma standing on that corner. There was just her, soaked and confused and completely shocked. "I'm sorry," she said slowly, her voice shaking a little. "Do we know each other?" The taxi driver smiled at her, and it was the warmest smile she had seen in months. "Not officially. But I know who you are. My name is William, but everyone calls me Bill. Please, get in. I promise you're safe with me." Emma stood there for a moment, water dripping from her hair, trying to decide what to do. Every smart part of her brain was telling her not to get into a taxi with a stranger who somehow knew her name. But something about this man felt different. Something about his voice made her feel safe instead of scared. Maybe it was because she was so tired of being alone. Maybe it was because she was so desperate for someone, anyone, to show her a little kindness. Or maybe it was because Bill's voice sounded like her grandfather's voice used to sound when she was a little girl, and he would tell her that everything would be okay. Emma made her decision. She opened the door and climbed into the warm, dry taxi. The seats were old but comfortable, and there was a faint smell of tea and old books that made her feel calm. "How do you know my name?" she asked as Bill started driving through the busy London streets. Bill looked at her in the rearview mirror, and his eyes were full of kindness. I've been driving this taxi for 30 years, Emma. In all that time, I've learned that everyone in this big city needs someone who remembers their name. You'd be surprised how rare that is these days. Emma felt tears starting to come to her eyes. But for the first time in months, they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of something else. Something she had almost forgotten existed. For the first time in so long, someone had said her name with real kindness. Someone had seen her, really seen her, when she felt completely invisible as the taxi moved through the rain-soaked streets. Emma realized that maybe, just maybe, this sterile day was about to become something different, something better. As Bill's black taxi moved slowly through the heavy London traffic, Emma felt something she had not experienced in many weeks. Her shoulders, which had been tight with worry for so long, began to relax. Her breathing became deeper and calmer. There was something almost magical about this elderly taxi driver who seemed to carry warmth and kindness with him wherever he went. The inside of the taxi felt like a safe place. Away from all the noise and stress of the busy city outside, Emma watched the rain running down the windows and listened to the gentle sound of the windshield wipers moving back and forth. For the first time in months, she was not thinking about her problems or worrying about her future. "You know," Bill said in his gentle voice, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "I remember the first time I saw you. You were sitting in that little cafe on Baker Street, the one with the bright red awning hanging over the front door. You always order a coffee with extra milk. And you always choose the small table by the window where you can watch people walking by." Emma's eyes grew wide with surprise. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out at first. She had been going to that same cafe for over a year, and it was true. She always ordered the same thing and always sat at the same table. But how could this stranger possibly know such personal details about her daily life? How could you possibly know that? She finally managed to ask, her voice full of wonder and confusion. Bill's face lit up with a warm smile that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. "I notice things, love. It's part of my job. You see, not just driving people from one place to another, but really seeing them, really paying attention to who they are and what they need. Do you know what I mean?" Emma shook her head slowly, still puzzled but no longer afraid. Something about the way Bill spoke made her feel safe and cared for, like she was talking to a wise grandfather who had all the time in the world to listen to her. "Let me tell you about James," Bill continued, his voice taking on the tone of someone who was about to share an important story. "He's a teacher, about your age actually. Brown hair, always carries a bag full of papers and books. Every morning for 2 years, he took my taxi to the primary school where he works. Nice young man, but always so worried about everything." Emma found herself leaning forward, genuinely curious about this person she had never met but somehow felt connected to through Bill's story. "James was always worried that he wasn't good enough for his students," Bill went on. "Every day, he would sit in the back seat of my taxi, looking through his lesson plans and muttering to himself about whether the children would understand what he was trying to teach them. He cared so much about doing a good job that it was making him sick with worry." "What happened to him?" Emma asked, her voice soft and interested. She found that listening to James's story was making her forget about her own problems for a while. Bill's expression became more serious, but still kind. "One morning, about 6 months ago, James got into my taxi and he was crying. Not just a few tears, but really crying like his heart was breaking. He told me he was thinking about quitting his job because he was convinced he was a terrible teacher. He thought his students would be better off with someone else. Emma felt her chest tighten with sympathy for this man she had never met. She knew exactly how James had felt. That crushing feeling that you are not good enough, that everyone would be better off without you. "So what did you do?" she asked. "I told him the same thing I'm telling you right now," Bill said, his voice becoming stronger and more confident. "Everyone has a story worth knowing. Everyone matters. Everyone makes a difference in this world, even when they can't see it themselves." James needed to hear that he was not alone, that someone saw his value, even when he could not see it. Bill slowed down as they approached a red traffic light. He turned round in his seat to look directly at Emma, his grey eyes full of warmth and understanding. "James is still teaching today," he continued with a proud smile. "Not only that, but his students love him. Last month, he won an award from the school for being the most caring teacher. Sometimes we just need someone to remind us that we're not invisible, that we matter more than we know." The traffic light turned green, but Bill did not drive away immediately. Instead, he kept looking at Emma with that same kind, understanding expression. "You're not invisible, Emma," he said quietly but firmly. "Not to me, and not to the world. You matter. Your story matters. Your life has value and meaning. Sometimes we just forget how to see ourselves clearly when we're going through difficult times." Emma felt something shift inside her chest. It was small at first, like a tiny flame being lit in a dark room. For the first time in many months, she felt a spark of hope growing warm inside her heart. Maybe, just maybe, Bill was right. Maybe she was not as invisible as she thought. Over the next few weeks, Emma began to notice something very strange and wonderful. Bill was not just any ordinary taxi driver. He seemed to appear in her life at exactly the right moments, like a guardian angel who knew when she needed help. The most it started small. Emma would be walking down the street, feeling sad and hopeless, and suddenly she would hear the familiar sound of Bill's black taxi pulling up beside her. He never seemed to be following her or watching her, but somehow he always showed up when her heart felt the heaviest. One greatest day morning, Emma was walking to another job interview. This was her 15th interview in 4 months, and she already felt defeated before she even got there. Her confidence was completely gone, and she felt like she was just going through the motions of pretending to be someone that companies might want to hire. She walked slowly down the sidewalk, her head down, watching her feet take one step after another. The interview was at a small advertising company, and Emma knew she should be excited about the opportunity. But instead, she just felt tired and empty, like she had nothing left to give. Just as she was thinking about turning round and going home, she heard a cheerful voice calling her name. "Morning, Emma," Bill's familiar voice called out from his black taxi, which had somehow appeared right beside her on the busy street. "You look like you could use a friend today. Fancy a ride?" "This one's on me." Emma looked up and saw Bill's kind face smiling at her through the taxi window. Despite feeling so low, she could not help but smile back. There was something about Bill that always made her feel better. Even when everything seemed hopeless, she climbed into the warm taxi, grateful to be out of the cold morning air. As Bill drove through the London streets, Emma noticed something she had never seen before. On the dashboard of his taxi, right in front of the steering wheel, was a small, worn notebook. The cover was brown leather, and it looked like it had been used for many years. "See that little book there, Emma?" Bill said, noticing her looking at it. "That's something very special to me. Would you like to know what it is?" Emma nodded, curious about this mysterious notebook that Bill kept so close to him while he drove. Bill reached over and handed her the small book. I write down the names of people I meet," he explained as Emma carefully opened it. "Not just passengers who ride in my taxi, but anyone who looks like they need a friend. Anyone who seems lonely or sad or lost." Emma looked down at the pages and was amazed by what she saw. The notebook was filled with Bill's careful handwriting. Every page had names and short descriptions written in neat, small letters. She read some of them out loud. "Margaret works at the flower shop on High Street. Loves yellow roses more than any other flower. Misses her late husband terribly and talks to his picture every morning. Thomas, 24 years old, studying to become a doctor. Works night. Shifts at the hospital to pay for his education. Drinks tea with 3 sugars to stay awake. Alice. New mother with a baby girl named Sophie. Worries constantly about doing everything right. Needs someone to tell her she's doing a wonderful job." Emma turned page after page, finding dozens and dozens of names and stories. Each entry was like a little window into someone's life, written with such care and attention that Emma could feel the love behind every word. "But why?" Emma asked, looking up at Bill with wonder in her eyes. "Why do you do this? Why do you take the time to remember all these people and write down their stories?" Bill's expression became soft and thoughtful, like he was remembering something from long ago. "Because 30 years ago, Emma, I was sitting exactly where you're now. I had lost my job, lost my direction in life, lost all hope for the future. I felt completely invisible, just like you do." Emma listened carefully as Bill continued his story. "I was sitting on a bench in Hyde Park one cold winter day, ready to give up on everything. One had been unemployed for 8 months, and I thought my life was over. I was 40 years old and felt like a complete failure." "What happened?" Emma asked quietly. "An old taxi driver stopped his cab right in front of my bench and rolled down his window. His name was Arthur, and he had kind eyes just like yours. He asked if I needed a ride. And when I said I had no money, he told me it didn't matter. He gave me a free ride home and talked to me like I was the most important person in the world." Bill paused at a red light and turned to look at Emma directly. "For the next 6 months, whenever I was feeling hopeless and alone, Arthur would somehow appear. He always remembered my name, always asked how I was doing, always made me feel like I mattered. He taught me that the smallest act of kindness, just remembering someone's name and treating them with respect, can literally save a person's life." Emma felt tears streaming down her face as she understood what Bill was telling her. "And now you do the same thing," she whispered. "Now I do the same thing." Bill nodded with a gentle smile. "And someday, Emma, when you're feeling strong again, you'll do it too." Inspired by everything Bill had shown her, Emma began to see the world in a completely different way. Even though she was still looking for a job and still struggling with her own problems, she started paying real attention to the people she met every single day. It began with small things. Instead of rushing past people without looking at them, Emma started making eye contact instead of just ordering her coffee and leaving. She began having short conversations with the people who served her, instead of seeing strangers as invisible parts of the background. She started seeing them as real human beings with their own stories and feelings. The first person she really got to know was David, the young man who worked at her local coffee shop. For months, Emma had been going there almost every day, ordering her coffee with extra milk, and leaving without ever learning his name. But now, inspired by Bill's kindness, she made an effort to talk to him. "Emma," she said one morning, as David handed her the usual coffee, "I come here all the time, but I never introduce myself properly." David's face lit up with a surprised smile. I'm David. He said warmly, I've been wondering about your name for ages, but I was too shy to ask. Over the next few days, Emma learned that David was 26 years old and originally from a small town in Ireland. He was working at the coffee shop to save money so he could visit his family back home. He had not seen his parents or his younger sister for 2 years, and he missed them terribly. I send them money every month, David told Emma as he cleaned the coffee machine. But I want to save enough to go home for a Christmas and surprise them. It would mean everything to me to see my little sister's face when I walk through the door. Emma felt her heart warm as she listened to David's story. She realized that for months she had been so focused on her own problems that she had never even wondered about the lives of the people round her. Next, Emma got to know Robert, the security guard at the local library where she spent hours looking for job opportunities online. Robert was a quiet man in his 50s who always nodded politely at Emma when she entered the building, but they had never really talked. One afternoon, Emma noticed Robert writing something in a small notebook during his break. She was curious, so she approached him carefully. I hope you don't mind me asking, Emma said gently, but I noticed you writing. Are you working on something special? Robert looked up, surprised that someone had taken an interest in what he was doing. Oh, it's just poetry, he said, looking a bit embarrassed. Nothing important, really. Poetry, the important, Emma said sincerely. I would love to hear about it. If you don't mind sharing. Robert's eyes brightened, and he told Emma that he had been writing poems for over 20 years. He wrote about the people he watched every day in the library, about the changing seasons, about the small moments of beauty he noticed in everyday life. He had never shown his poems to anyone because he thought people would laugh at him. Emma also began talking to Grace, the elderly woman who sold newspapers on the corner near her apartment building. Grace was 78 years old, and she had the most beautiful posture Emma had ever seen. When Emma asked about it, Grace's eyes sparkled with memory. I was a dancer when I was young, Grace said proudly. Ballet, mostly, but also some modern dance. I performed in theatres all over London. Those were the most wonderful days of my life. Grace told Emma that she still did her ballet exercises every morning in her small apartment. Even though her legs were not as strong as they used to be, she sold newspapers to make a little extra money. But mostly she enjoyed talking to people and staying connected to the world round her. Emma started carrying her own small notebook. Just like Bill's, every day she wrote down the names of people she met and small details about their lives. She wrote about David's dream to visit Ireland, Robert's beautiful poetry, and Grace's dancing memories. Something magical began to happen. The more Emma paid attention to other people, the less alone she felt, and strangely, the more she remembered people's names and asked about their lives, the more they smiled. People began to look forward to seeing her, just like she had looked forward to seeing Bill. One day, Emma decided to volunteer at a local homeless shelter. She wanted to help people who were going through difficult times, just like she was. While she was serving dinner to the people who came to the shelter, she met a young woman who looked very sad and tired. The young woman was sitting alone at a table, eating slowly and staring down at her food. Emma approached her gently and sat down in the chair across from her. Hi, Emma said softly. I'm Emma. What's your name? The young woman looked up with surprise, as if she was not used to people asking her personal questions. I'm Lucy, she said quietly. But nobody ever remembers my name anyway. I feel like I don't exist. Lucy was only 19 years old, but her eyes looked much older. She told Emma that she had been living on the streets for whole months after aging out of the foster care system. She had nowhere to go and no family to help her. Your name is Lucy, and I'll remember it, Emma said firmly. Tell me something about yourself that you'd like me to know. Lucy's face completely changed. Her sad expression was replaced by surprise, and then joy, as if someone had just given her an unexpected gift. I used to paint, Lucy said, her voice becoming stronger. I was quite good at it, actually. What did you like to paint most? Emma asked with genuine interest. Flowers, Lucy whispered, and her whole face lit up. I painted flowers because they were beautiful, even when everything else felt ugly. Emma carefully wrote in her notebook, Lucy, talented artist, paints flowers, deserves to be seen and remembered. 6 months after that rainy day when Emma first met Bill, her entire life had changed in ways she never could have imagined. The woman who had once felt invisible and hopeless now had a job that filled her heart with purpose and joy every single day. Emma had found work at a charity organization called New Beginnings, which helped homeless young people find safe places to live and learn job skills. It was not just a job for Emma. It felt like her true calling in life. Every morning when she woke up, she was excited to go to work because she knew she would be helping people who needed hope, just like she had needed hope 6 months ago. On her first day at the new job, Emma put on her best dress and walked outside, her apartment building with a huge smile on her face. She felt nervous, but also incredibly happy. For the first time in almost a year, she felt like she had found her place in the world. She stepped onto the busy London street and raised her hand to call for a taxi. To her absolute joy and amazement, Bill's familiar black taxi cab pulled up to the curb, just like it had so many times before when she needed him most. Well, Bill said with a huge grin as Emma climbed into the back seat. Look at you, Emma. You're absolutely glowing with happiness. I can see it in your eyes and in the way you're sitting. Something wonderful has happened, hasn't it? Emma could not stop smiling as she settled into the comfortable seat that felt like an old friend. It's all because of you, Bill, she said, and she felt tears of gratitude starting to fill her eyes. You taught me that everyone has a story worth knowing. Everyone deserves to be seen and remembered and treated with kindness. Bill looked at her in the rearview mirror, and his expression was full of pride and warmth. No, love, he said gently, shaking his head. I just reminded you of something you already knew deep in your heart. The kindness was always there inside you. You just needed to remember how to use it and share it with the world. Emma reached into her purse and pulled out her own small notebook, which was now filled with dozens and dozens of names and stories. The pages were covered with her careful handwriting. Just like Bill's notebook had been, she had written about David the coffee shop worker, Robert the poet security guard, Grace the former dancer, and so many other people whose lives had touched hers. I've been thinking a lot about Lucy, Emma said, flipping through the pages of her notebook. You know, the young woman I met at the homeless shelter. She's such an amazing artist. But she's completely lost her confidence. She doesn't believe in herself at all, and I want to help her remember how talented and special she is. Bill's face lit up with pride as he listened to Emma talk about helping Lucy. That's exactly the spirit I was hoping you would find, he said happily. You know what the best part about this is? Lucy will help someone else someday, and that person will help another person, and that person will help someone else. Kindness spreads like ripples in water. Once you start it moving, it never really ends. As Bill drove his taxi through the busy London streets, Emma looked out the window at all the people walking on the sidewalks. Hundreds of people were rushing to work, shopping, meeting friends, living their lives. But now, instead of seeing them as strangers who did not matter to her, Emma saw something completely different. She saw stories waiting to be discovered. She saw names waiting to be remembered. She saw hearts waiting to be touched by kindness. Every single person she looked at was someone who mattered, someone who had dreams and fears and hopes, someone who deserved to be seen and valued. Emma thought about her new job and all the young people she would be helping. She thought about Lucy and how she planned to encourage her to start painting again. She thought about all the people whose names were written in her notebook, and how much brighter their faces had become when she remembered their stories and asked about their lives. "Bill," Emma said softly as they got closer to her new office building, "I want you to know that you saved my life. When I met you 6 months ago, I felt completely invisible. I thought nobody cared about me, and I thought I didn't matter to anyone in the world." Bill smiled at her in the mirror, but he shook his head again. "You were never invisible, Emma. You just forgot how to see your own light. And now look at you. You're about to spend your days helping other people remember their own light too." As the taxi pulled up in front of the New Beginnings charity office, Emma felt her heart full of gratitude and excitement. She was ready to start this new chapter of her life, ready to help other people the way Bill had helped her. "Thank you, Bill," she said as she prepared to get out of the taxi. "Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for teaching me that everyone's story matters." Bill turned round in his seat to look at Emma directly, his kind grey eyes sparkling with happiness. "Thank you, Emma," he replied with the warmest smile she had ever seen, "for proving that one person who chooses to really see others can change the whole world, one name at a time." As Emma walked toward her new job, she knew that this was just the beginning of a lifetime of helping others feel seen and valued, just like Bill had helped her. The end.